Nowadays we have cars. The cars, they have 2 seats on the front and 2 seats on the rear. And every car is like that. And why? Why only 2? Why not 1? Why not 3? Why not a car with a different shape? A triangular. For a woman out there is tough, it's hard. And we need to be smart.
Hello everyone, welcome to Women at Tech YouTube channel. Today I'm truly honored to welcome Olivia Borgue. She's a research associate at the University of Luxembourg. Olivia received her PhD in new space technologies at the Chalmers University of Technology. She holds 2 master's degree in mechanical engineering from Argentina and Sweden. With a lot of accomplishments to her name, today Olivia is going to share her research experience in the space sector, her Antarctic expedition, as well as her hobbies as a rescue diver and a helicopter pilot. We're very happy to welcome Olivia.
Thank you.
Yeah, so Olivia, how did you choose the field of research in the space sector? And was there any instance during your childhood or your teenage years that you would call a turning point, which led to your choice?
No, I would say I didn't have any turning point. I would describe it as a constant in my life. I always wanted to explore. I like to explore the waters, the sky, and then naturally space. So yeah, I cannot single out any moment where I realized this. I've always wanted to know everything, and what better than exploring.
So you chose space as, a medium to explore. And I guess you can now share about some of the projects that, really fascinated you probably, to explore space in specific. Yeah.
Do you mean previous space missions or projects that I work with?
So was there any inspiration in terms of, previous missions, something that you watched online or through television that actually shaped your choice?
I wouldn't say so. No.
Okay.
Also, because when I was a kid, space was not popular. It was in the early 90s, so nobody cared much about space. It's not like now that space missions are shared or people comment about it. No, nothing like that. We knew that mankind had reached the moon, and that's it.
So how did you choose, mechanical engineering, as your degree right after probably high school? So how did you make that choice?
Well, that's an interesting question because I always wanted to do space engineering. And in Argentina, I think at the time, the only aerospace engineering opportunities were far away from my home. And I just couldn't afford to live there. And then I got a scholarship that was only for mechanical engineering. So I had to study mechanical engineering. I'm very lucky that I love it. I'm very interested in it, and I enjoyed every part of my studies. But I just took the opportunity that I had, and then I tried to get into the space sector once I had my first master, and once I was independent and could move out of the country and just try to enter the industry.
Okay. So how is the space sector in Argentina, where you studied your first master's degree? Yeah.
Argentina has a space industry, but it is rather small. Probably because space industries require a lot of investment. So our industry was small, and it was only related to the manufacturing of satellites. And I was not so interested on that. It was satellite manufacturing and mostly telecommunications, which is not something that I would like to pursue.
After doing your first master's in mechanical engineering and figuring out that you really enjoyed it, what made your decision to choose another master's in mechanical engineering in another country? So, yeah.
So I wanted to move to Europe and pursue a space career, and I originally had a scholarship for a master's in Russia, a master's about materials engineering for special applications such as nuclear or space applications. But then when I was about to move, the program was canceled. And I wanted to take advantage of my momentum for moving and all the motivation I had. So I found a master's somewhere else, and that's how I found Sweden. And that's how I ended up there with a master's in mechanical engineering again.
Very interesting. But what our viewers should know is that before you started your second master's to Europe, you actually were the first civilian Argentinian women selected for the Antarctic campaign. So how was
Yes.
your experience in Antarctica for one whole year, and how did you apply for it? Yeah.
Well, the experience, I think it was the best year of my life. It was great. It was very tough as well. I actually, when I applied, I didn't have a complete idea about how tough it was gonna be. I realized once I was there. And the application process in Argentina is fairly straightforward. You take an exam on electronics, because my position was for electronic maintenance, repairing and all that.
Mm-hmm.
So I took an exam about that, and then a lot of psychological evaluations, and then medical evaluations, until finally they ship you there.
So I'm curious to know, because you did your master's in mechanical engineering, so was it difficult to prepare for the electronics exam? And yeah, and how did you choose to be in electronic maintenance and yeah.
I didn't have a choice there, because there were only every year there's only two types of positions. One is for electronics maintenance, and the other one is for IT. And I don't like IT, so I had to go for electronics. And I don't know, I studied electronics and took the exam. It was interesting because it's a national exam, and I don't know right now, but to prepare the exam and at the same time try to beat the real electronic engineers.
Exactly.
On the exam.
That means you would have worked you would have put in a lot of effort to actually be in the top of the to get selected, right? So
yes, absolutely.
How was the experience like in Antarctica? What was your work like? And how did you survive the extreme weather? Yeah.
Well, my work there, it was a bit of everything. When you go for maintenance, your work is mostly on demand, because things are not broken all the time. Hopefully they break rather seldomly, but then you cannot be there doing nothing. So we all do general station maintenance, whether it's small repairments on the buildings, shoveling snow, cooking, unloading when ships come, anything. And then we also go on expeditions. And the second big part of my job was to provide scientific support to the experiments that were ongoing, because during the winter you only have the permanent crew, and they have to take care of everybody's experiments. So yeah, we also do that.
So, what kind of expedition is it? Like, just curious to know, how far do you have to go from, your base station where you stay, and were there any exciting, experiences that you had which were quite challenging? Yeah.
Well, we usually didn't travel so far. Maybe, I don't know, a number of kilometers. I don't know, because it's not a route marked in a map. It's not a straight line. You don't have blocks to count. Maybe between 1 hour and 1 hour and a half walking back to get to the place, and then to come back another hour and a half to have idea of the distances. And well, we did repairment of antennas when they broke. Some antennas, they are far away. We also have radio stations, GPS stations that need to be maintained. And we also count animals. Yeah.
Crazy.
We take samples sometimes, yes.
And, I guess you were the only women in the crew, right? Which traveled there. And how was that experience, And I'm sure that now that there are more women after you who have gone to Argentina, but you were the first one, to bring in the confidence, to women after you that, you can do this too. So, how was the experience being the only women in the crew?
Oh, it was tough. It was very tough. It was a whole process to gain everybody's respect, because such a new situation for everybody. So people need to get used to. I was also the youngest member of the crew. So you also need to gain the respect regarding that aspect, because at the time I think I was maybe 24, 25 years, and some crew members were 40, 60. So there is an intrinsic respect that is gained with age, and I didn't have that.
And you'll have to push yourself to show them that you're technically good as well, right? Since you were young.
Technically, and also that you're not scared, that you can perform all your tasks, and that you can make yourself useful, because everybody needs to be useful there. And if the crew doesn't trust you, then you don't get any task and you cannot be useful.
Crazy. That sounds like an interesting and most challenging experience for you. But right after coming from Argentina, you decided to pursue another master's degree, and you talked about that master's degree in Sweden. So how is a master's degree in Sweden different from your experience in Argentina? Yeah. So
you mean a difference in educational systems, or
just your experience in doing a master's in mechanical engineering? Could be difference in educational system, could be the way just the culture, the language, you're moving to a new place. So how was the experience?
Oh, yeah. Okay, I get it now, what you're after. Well, there are differences intrinsic to the educational system of both countries. The master in Argentina was a bit more scientific, a bit more practical. And in Sweden, it was more oriented to maybe getting a job in an industry afterwards. Not so much into research, but more on how can we prepare you even better for the professional life. And then, my second master's was in English, and it was the first time I was abroad speaking another language. And it was very energy consuming, because at the same time I was learning Swedish, because I wanted to pursue a PhD afterwards, and I needed to know the language in the country I was living in. And the language, the adaptation period, the economy, because you need to provide with yourself, for yourself. In my case, I use all the money I made in Antarctica. I use it for my master and for living in Sweden until I got my first salary there as a PhD student.
Okay. So, wow. And so when you were in Antarctica, so you were a paid candidate. So,
Oh yeah.
wow. Okay. So yeah, it'll be interesting for the people, who see the video, that you can be paid to to go to, a very harsh environment. But again, yeah, I mean,
we are
they all.
very generously paid. Very generously paid.
Okay.
Yes. That's why I could move out of the continent and finance myself. Otherwise, it would have been impossible.
That's great to know. So you moved from Argentina to Antarctica, and from Antarctica to Sweden.
Yes.
And then after Sweden, you decided to, to stay to do a PhD, stay in Sweden and do a PhD in the aerospace field. So yeah, I mean, how did you choose the PhD topic, and what motivated you to do a PhD? Yeah.
I wanted to do a PhD because, as a very curious person, I like doing research. And I was not ready to go to industry. I wanted to explore more, in a sense. And I perceive industry sometimes to be quite rigid on the freedom you have to pursue your interests. And at the time, I just was not ready for that. So I wanted to do a PhD. And I wanted to get into space. I still wanted to get in the industry. So I was looking for a PhD in space, basically. And I found this one at Chalmers, focused on space systems engineering.
That's very interesting. But you have actually 2 grants. You have supervised several courses, and you have authored like 9 conference and journal articles during your PhD, right? And what helped you innovate, during your PhD, and how did you manage your time? You make it sound so easy, but you have done just so many things during your PhD, right?
Yes. Well, to me, the secret is planning. I have a long-term plan, a medium-term plan, then I have a yearly plan, a monthly plan, a weekly plan, and then I plan my tasks to the level of the day. That keeps me hitting deadlines constantly. I don't miss deadlines, only because I have a very good plan. But also, you need to understand that you made the plan, and you are also capable of modifying it. So your plan has to be flexible and adaptable, because your interest might change, your levels of energy fluctuate, and so I plan very precisely, but in that precision, I also take into account my need for rest and my changing interests.
Okay, that's really nice information that you shared, that, about the time, right? We all have to, plan our time and then we can achieve a lot of things. But in your case, you say you plan to the day, right? And sometimes you have things that don't go your way. So how did you, manage those situations, and do you rechange your plan? How?
Yeah, you find a workaround. If something doesn't go as planned, that is actually quite normal. Things never go perfectly, but still the structure of the plan works because it keeps you focused and it gives you an overall idea of the time that you can use. If you have several goals that you want to achieve, you know that you cannot put all your energy in only one, because then you will be depleted for your other goals. That to me is the basis of flexibility. Accept that things are not going to work, and have a plan that is robust enough to let you work around your failures and work around the unexpected, and still hit the milestones that you want.
So I would like to know more about, like, your PhD topic. So can you talk about, like, your PhD topic is pretty interesting. So I would like, our viewers to know more about it, and and talk about one of your favorite projects that you did during your PhD. Yeah.
My PhD topic was in space systems engineering, focused on the introduction of new technologies into complex space systems, but a focus put on verification, validation, and testing, and everything related to quality assurance and how to introduce a new technology while making a quality product that is also affordable. Because if it's not affordable, then we cannot put it in the market, then it doesn't make any sense. All of our research, more or less. And my favorite project for me is a project called CHEOPS, that was about Hall thrusters for satellite applications. They're a type of electric thrusters that work in a way very similar to what's known as Hall effect. That's where they get their name from. And I work on the design and qualification of these thrusters, and also explore the possibility of introducing new technologies in the thrusters and see how that would affect their performance, not only related to their functionality, but also their market performance, cost,
Okay.
cost, time to market, all that.
How, so we know you have like 2 grants. What is the process of, getting grants during your PhD? Can you elaborate more on that?
I think it depends on the institution where you're obtaining your PhD from. And in the end, it boils down to what you're gonna do with the money, and if that is interesting to whoever is funding you. In my case, one of my grants was for the development of a software tool that condensed all the results from my PhD. And I wanted to put it in a tool so companies could use them and research groups could use it. Otherwise, it dies in theory, and there is no application procedure. And at Chalmers, there is the innovation office that sometimes gives you grants when you have a project that could be applied. For example, making a software tool.
Mm-hmm.
So the application process, I guess, is similar to application process in general. You have to demonstrate the usefulness of your project, how you will use the money, and also your ability to lead the project.
Okay.
Also, it has to be something that you have some expertise, so they will trust you with the funding. You cannot just apply for a topic that is not yours, an area that is not yours, simply.
And can you give some, suggestions about how you manage to innovate, right? You have several conference papers and journal articles, and how did you innovate during your PhD? Yeah. What was the process like? Yeah.
I think that to innovate, systems engineering has been extremely helpful because it gave me tools to abstract engineering. For example, one very famous tool from systems engineering is the functional decomposition. You grab a product, and then you decompose it on the functions, and then you forget about the form. And a very interesting innovation exercise is to come up with ways of fulfilling the same functions without using the forms that you know nowadays. For example, why nowadays we have cars. The cars, they have 2 seats on the front and 2 seats on the rear. And every car is like that. And why? Why only 2? Why not 1? Why not 3? Why not a car with a different shape, a triangular shape? And those are questions that help you innovate, because sometimes the answer is in aerodynamics, for example, and sometimes the answer is because that's the way we do it and that's the way we've been doing it. And that many times hinders innovation because we are constrained to the world that we have already experienced. So the ideas that we will have are going to be inside the box, unless we purposefully think outside the box. To me, it's quite difficult. So after doing functional decomposition and idea generation for space products, I started using it for everything. In the end, you start questioning every shape and every application. Why do we use this for this and not for this other thing? And I don't know, your brain just then it does that process by itself.
I mean, this is really useful for me as well, and I want to apply it in my life too. So thanks really for sharing about, this part about functional decomposition. So after your PhD, a successful PhD, I can say, what made you decide to stay in academia? And I know now you are a research associate at the University of Luxembourg, and you also shifted from Sweden to Luxembourg to pursue, your postdoc. And what made you decide to be in academia? Yeah.
Well, I do like research. I still like it, and even though now I'm more open to the idea of going to industry, this decision I made only because it was the best offer I had. And it doesn't mean that my other offers were not great, but they were not aligned with my values and my interests. For example, in Sweden, I got a lot of offers for the defense industry, for designing guns, RPGs, torpedoes, and it's not something I would like to do. And then I found this alternative in Luxembourg that is about space, and that is about innovation, and it's a nice mixture of theory and practice, because we have laboratories where we can test our ideas and we can build things that would then we launched into space. Because to me, if I work in space, I would really like to launch some things,
That's really great to know. And I guess one of your projects is going to launch to space. If, would you like to share about the project? And, we would love to know more about it. Yeah.
Yes. Right now I'm leading a project for the design and manufacturing of very small satellites in the order of 30 grams, more or less, between 10 and 30 grams. And we are trying to develop inter-satellite communication for this size of satellite, which is extremely challenging. And well, it is still a challenge that we want to undertake because it's extremely interesting. So next year we are launching our first satellite, and hopefully they will communicate and they will send us back the data to our ground station.
Yeah, and all the best to that project. So
Thank
can you share about like a day in your life as a research associate?
Well, one of the good things about research is that I don't know if there is one day that is representative of your whole career, because sometimes you work on simulations on your computer, sometimes you go to the laboratory and you have to solder, have hardware, sometimes you have to teach. We also go to conferences. We spend a disturbing amount of time in meetings, and a bit of everything. There is no 2 days that are the same to me.
Seems quite an exciting, quite an exciting mix of many things, between industry and academia. So,
Yeah, it's multidisciplinary.
that's great. So what is one thing that you would say that you really like about your job, and one thing that, you dislike about it?
I will talk about academia in general. I think what I like is that it's always in the front of innovation. And sometimes profit is not so important. So you get to pursue ideas that in industry, they just wouldn't fly. Nobody would finance that. I like that, because from those crazy ideas, then we have the extremely well-performing products from the future. So someone has to do it, and I'm glad it can be me sometimes. And the worst thing I would say is that the environment is very competitive. And sometimes there are very toxic personalities in your research group that they ruin your work and the whole environment, and it's very tough to continue. And because the environment is so competitive, you're mostly encouraged to just endure it, just to be there, do your job, and wait until that person leaves. And well, hopefully that will change sometime in the future. But right now it's something that can happen.
I mean, it's great to, that you shared about the challenges as well, being in the research in academia. So I'm sure let's move on to something like nice about your journey, right? So what were the instances that, made you feel proud of yourself? Like,
Well, personally, every time I I doubt myself. I think about the fact that I can fly a helicopter.
Wow.
I
Yeah.
feel very proud, and it helps me to get some extra energy and some extra confidence on the days that perhaps I needed. And that's one very good thing about having goals and attaining your goals. They don't have to be huge goals, but it has to be something that requires effort and focus. And then when you achieve it, then you can use that goal to fuel the next ones and so on. So you increase your confidence on your own, just looking to the past of everything that you've achieved.
Um, that's great, and I'm sure your motivation for many women who look at the video, the fact that apart from having like a probably having had so much achievement in academia, you're also looking into being a helicopter, and we would like to know more about your experience as a rescue diver. How did that come forward, and yeah, and what
Well,
and how yeah. I guess you spend your free time in many other ways. We would love to know more about it. Yeah.
yes, I really love diving as well, scuba diving, because you get to see what happens under the surface, and I like it. You see new flora, new fauna. The sounds are different, the colors are different, and I started diving, and I went scuba diving on the weekend. And in Sweden, it's a very popular sport. So there are Facebook groups, for example, where you gather with strangers and you go and dive. And many times it happened to me that we were go diving, and we were a group of fairly uneducated divers. So if something would happen, we wouldn't have had a lot of tools to maybe resuscitate someone, or simply knowing what to do. So that got me into becoming a rescue diver, because now I know what to do if some things go wrong. I can help my teammates. I'm it's a great tool to identify risks. So you increase your safety measures, and just by having an education, you reduce the probability of an accident happening.
So I think in your journey, I've seen a lot of your experiences in quality and safety.
Yes.
So that's pretty interesting.
Yeah,
And
because you can see my resume in different ways, and one way of seeing it is that there's a lot of risky activities, Antarctica, piloting, scuba diving, but also, as you say, there's a big component of safety, because if you want to enjoy exciting activities, you have to do it in a safe way, so you can do it over and over.
wow.
If you have an accident, then the fun is over, and we don't want the fun to be over. So we need to be safe. We need to pay attention to the quality of our equipment, the quality of our procedures, the quality of our knowledge. So to me, it's two things that go hand in hand. The exciting experiences, and also all the boring time that you have to spend on quality assurance, basically.
Wow. So apart from doing the adventurous activity, you're also, taking part in the safe enjoyment of, these activities.
Yeah.
Uh,
I To you and anybody that wants to undertake these activities, I would ask you to think about imagine if you're in the middle of the activity and something happens, what would you do? And if the answer is I don't know, then it's not a good answer. You need to increase your survival chances. Simply that.
I didn't ask you much about, your license as a private your licensed private helicopter, and I didn't ask you much questions about it. So how long did it take for you to, attain the license, and how did this thing, come up from your regular schedule, right? How did you make some time?
Mm. It was a nightmare period actually, because I was doing my PhD.
Wow, okay.
And I was already very busy, and I wanted to fly a helicopter. So, and at the same time, I also wanted to do scuba diving sometimes because I like it. So my schedule was very crowded. I had to be very precise with my resting periods. I had to sleep 8 hours every night, every single day. I have to be well fed every day. And I have to work out 3 or 4 times a week because it helps with stress reduction. If you get stressed, then you cannot complete your agenda.
Wow.
So it's a very delicate balance. Rest is extremely important. Stress relief activities are also extremely important. And the rest of the time is just working hard and focus. Sometimes I went flying early in the morning. I used to wake up 4 or 5 a.m. to go to the airport, fly there, do everything there, and then by lunch, go work on my PhD until 7, 8, and then come back home and study some flight theory for my theoretical exams for the pilot license. But yeah, I would do it again, but maybe not right now.
Wow, okay.
It
That
was very, very tough.
I mean, your PhD has been like really long journey. I mean, it might have been just 4 years, like, in writing, but you have done a lot of things, which is really great to know. And I really enjoyed the fact that you talked about, managing your time, right? Something that we might miss in our day-to-day life, that, if you know to manage your time well and set goals, all the things that you can achieve is what, your journey has showed us. You have talked, about your PhD and academia. So what has actually been your driving factor, to pursue your goals?
Um, Probably some intrinsic ambition and the fact that I am quite impatient. So I cannot say, oh, I would like to, I don't know, I would like to learn Japanese
Wow,
someday.
okay.
I cannot say that. I cannot say that. My
Okay.
mind goes directly to, I want to right now know how to speak Japanese. So I have to start yesterday and I have to put all my time there until I get it done. I'm not interested in Japanese. This is only an example. But
Okay.
my motivation is always a force inside me impossible to control. I want to attain something, and I work until I get it.
I think this is a really good advice for, people who want to do many things, right? Want to add so many things to their schedule and achieve all of them. And from your journey, we learned that, how to live in the moment and then, work for it until you achieve it. So, how would usually people say that it's difficult, to as someone who has come from probably not from Europe, right? You have come from Argentina. Was it difficult process for you to get opportunities in the space sector?
Yeah,
Like,
it
and
was
how did you
very,
traverse
very
through it?
hard.
Yeah.
It was very hard. First, because as I get my first education in Europe, first of all, I didn't have the contacts. I didn't know where to go, who to talk to, and also different countries have different industry and are interested in different things. So you have to learn to navigate the interests of this new society while at the same time you adapt to it. It's hard, but I would say you just have to be very, very open-minded and see what you can get in the place you are, in the country, in the new country you chose for you. Because maybe the country you chose is not aligned with your interests. Maybe economically is aligned, but the job you want is not there. The job you want is in another country. Just keep an open mind and never stop searching until you find what you want.
Yeah. So how you were talking about society, right? And how would you want to be known, right, in the society?
Um, I like when people refer to me as someone that get things done. I like that because I do get things done. And to me, that's a descriptive that fits well, and it's much better than being known as creative or smart, because getting things done involves so many more things. You have to be mildly smart. I mean, there is some component of intelligence that waits there, but it's mostly time management, motivation, and strategy. Getting things done is achieving your goals, and for that there is the set of abilities that you need is very multidisciplinary.
Mm-hmm. And we could see that obviously from all your experience that you had, that you did apply, strategy, and you were completely motivated, focused, and you managed your time well.
Yes.
So it's a good lesson, for me to, to employ all of these things in my life too. And I'm very grateful. We would like to close this wonderful session with one advice that you would like to give to female, women who want to become researchers just like you. You have been in mostly male-dominated domains like mechanical engineering, then shifted to aerospace. Yeah, what would be your advice?
My advice is that it's very tough out there. It's very tough. So besides all the work that you have to do, please pay attention to your rest and the mental health that comes with that. Don't fall into the trap of sleeping 2-3 hours every night, because you're gonna crash and burn. You're not gonna get anywhere. You really need to take care of yourself. And if you burn out or if you get sick, those are fights that you cannot fight anymore. For a woman out there is tough, is hard, and we need to be smart. We need to work, get things done, but not break in the process.
Thank you so much, Olivia, for sharing your journey and inspiring women like me. I'm sure that the viewers who are listening to, this conversation between us both, they would have really enjoyed it, and they would have also gotten a lot of learnings, right, from your journey. I'm sure that there'll be more women researchers in the aerospace field, in the future. And yeah, thank you so much for the